Welcome back. If you're here, you've finished transforming your objectives into transfer goals. Now we're going to work on creating measurable objectives to meet those goals or address those goals. And in this PowerPoint, we're going to look at the difference between goals and objectives. So right now, your transfer goals, if you've probably noticed, are fairly broad, fairly general in intention, fairly intangible, abstract, and generally difficult to measure. Whereas the objectives that we're going to be creating now are more narrow, precise, tangible, concrete, and can be measured. So an objective will describe what a student should know, and an objective will describe what a student should be able to do. So your objectives will be, in other words, specific, measurable, attainable, and relevant, and time-bound. Let's talk just for a second about relevant. Relevant means not only relevant to the content that you're teaching, which is the internal consistency for the content, but also relevant to life outside the classroom, which is why the goals are transfer goals. It's the same reason that we want relevant objectives. We want objectives that look beyond the narrow scope of the classroom. And time-bound refers to how much time it's going to take an objective to be met over a course of a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a semester, a quarter, a year. Culminating tasks take a year or 2 semesters because you're building up to those throughout your units. A quiz will take a day. That's very time-bound. So actually your assessments are going to be very intimately related to objectives. So even though it sounds like I'm talking about assessments, you have to think about how the objective will be measured. So looking back at our citizenship standards, we now have them stated in transfer goal form. So now they're transfer goals. Name the important characteristic of citizenship. Explain that it's important for citizens to fulfill their public responsibilities. Establish, explain, apply criteria useful in evaluating rules and laws. And so you can see that all these have an active verb in them now. Now, most of the verbs that are used are higher level thinking verbs. You'll notice that in A, it is not. It's more of a comprehension or knowledge because all you have to do is remember a list of characteristics without understanding. So these are the ones you want to avoid. Sometimes it's important to be able to, list off something quickly. Vocabulary is a good example. But to understand it means you have to be able to do other things with it. You have to be able to manipulate the information, and so the higher level thinking and the more active verbs at those higher levels are important to use. So we have our transfer goals, and now we're going to look at some objectives that were created for those transfer goals. We're going to evaluate these objectives. Are they specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound? And so usually if they're measurable and attainable, they will be time-bound. The other question you want to ask yourself when you're creating these is, can you use this objective across content areas? So let's take a look at what students should know. They should know general knowledge about the Constitution. Is it specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound? Well, it is specific. It doesn't list it out. Is it measurable? It will be. Is it attainable? Absolutely, based on a unit of instruction. Is it relevant internally to the content? Yes, and externally, the Constitution affects us in our daily lives, so how do we make that relationship known? And is it time-bound? A person can probably learn that within a quarter or a semester. The reasons for the Constitutional Convention: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, yes, time-bound, all of those things. The role the Founding Fathers played in developing the Constitution: again, all the 5 criteria apply. How it affects our daily lives, 5 criteria apply. So all of these, what they should know. But what you notice is that under what students should know, you don't have verbs. It's just what knowledge do they need to have. Now, under what students should be able to do based on that knowledge is vote for candidates running for office, extract information from books about the Constitution, and create a chart, diagram, or infographic. So evaluate differences between 2 candidates running for office. So then you have, these are not assessments, but they will lead to assessments. So they should be able to do these things when they're done. How will you assess they do them? That's for 2 modules away from now. So what students should be able to do, you see the verbs are higher level thinking verbs: extract information and create well, it doesn't use the word create in there, but for a chart, diagram, or infographic presentation and so forth. So the other thing we're looking at now is, can you use the objective across content areas? You can use it in reading, writing, listening, speaking. Of course, that's all language arts. This is social studies, so you can do all the language arts things in there. You can, I'm sure, do math or science. I can't think about it right at the moment in terms of how that would apply. You have art incorporated in it. You have social emotional learning incorporated in it. So you have a variety of content areas or areas of significance that will also apply to when you create your bigger unit and you want to do cross-curricular things. So just think about how these aren't just specific to social studies, but that you can use other content areas to enhance and articulate the overall goal and that you are trying to get to, and the objective. So that's it for goals and objectives. If you have any questions, let me know. On your graphic organizer, which I call the graphic organizer, is your lesson plan template. You're going to need to complete the 3 sections: content standards, established goals, and actually key knowledge and skills are 2 sections, but those are the objective sessions, what students should know and what they should be able to do. And, keep in mind the active verbs, keep in mind the 5 criteria for objectives. And I want you to submit your work anytime by the due date. I'll provide feedback promptly. I would write on or right after the due date in any case. Don't send the assignments in emails, please, but I will check them on Blackboard. If you send them early and I have a chance, I will get to them early, but I'm not going to guarantee that because I have a pretty busy travel schedule as well. So with that said, enjoy writing your objectives, and I am looking forward to reading them. So have a good time, and this is your first assignment, so enjoy and get rolling on that lesson plan.